The call for political and economic emancipation of the African continent has become even more pressing, with government, civil society and others reverberating the voices of Kwame Nkruma, among other liberation struggle leaders across Africa. Today, in the 21st century, we turn our attention to a topic that is both timely and urgent: mindset as a prerequisite to Africa's transformation as we navigate an era characterized by shifting global alliances, emerging multipolarity and fierce geopolitical competition. Africa stands at a crossroads of opportunities and challenges. The continent is rich in natural resources and boasts a vibrant youthful population poised for growth. However, in spite of the endowment, Africa still grapples with the reality of being home to some of the world's poorest community. Transformative leadership and a fundamental shift in mindset are therefore essential for Africa to reframe its narrative. Today, on this edition of Global Insight, we'll explore how a focused change in mindset can empower Africa to navigate the complexities of globalization, enhance its strategic importance on the global stage, and ultimately lead to a brighter, more prosperous future for its people. Stay tuned. This is Global Insight. What Africa needs in this contemporary society, it's not funding, but the right mindset. Words of Rwandan President Paul Kagame. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's edition of the program. It is Global Insight, your discursive program on For You Media Africa. Today, we want to capitalize not for the call of, economic emancipation and even political emancipation in Africa. We want to discuss the common ground that stakeholders across the continent, be it political actors, civil society and others, can capitalize on to ensure that this transformation is practical and feasible and also timely. And many people across the globe and in Africa as well have identified mindset, the change of mindset, as that catalyst that will help spur the needed change that Africa needs in the world of increasing multilateralism, a world of shifting alliances, as we underlined in the preamble. So together with guests and a panel of experts, we are going to look at the place of mindset and the right attitudes to adopt as far as the challenges and opportunities in the continent are concerned, to chart that trajectory for transformation across Africa. You are most welcome. Without much ado, we go straight away to Algeria, being joined by Professor Laïd Zaglami, Algiers University, Faculty of Information and Communication. Hello to you, Professor Zaglami. It's a pleasure having you again on Global Insight platform.
Hello, good afternoon to you and to the panel. I'm so pleased to join you for this program and delighted to take part, and hope we will have a very interesting debate. And thank you for having me again on your program for today.
Thank you so much, Professor, for giving importance to this appointment. Now we want to invite Dr. Timi Topwe, who is an environmental economist, joining us today to share insight on the prospects of mindset shift in transforming Africa. Welcome, Dr. Timi Topwe.
Thank you very much. I really want to appreciate you for inviting me for this wonderful debate. I also want to say thank you to our listeners, and also to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for accepting. Just to note that two other guests will be joining us subsequently as we continue to explore this very important topic, the place of mindset in ensuring total transformation of the African continent. Should we want to rewrite the trajectory, be it political and economic trajectory of our continent, Africa, the best thing to do is to adopt a mindset that is solution oriented, a mindset that will fit in the changing times, and of course this will be masterminded by the political actors, civil societies, and every other person who is engaged in seeing that Africa comes out from the web of colonialism. And we're going to right off with you, Professor Laida. I always want us to have an overview of this very important problematic we are analyzing this day, the place of mindset in ensuring Africa's transformation in every sphere.
Yes, you are quite right. Clarice talking about mindset. I think what we should know right now, most African countries are now independent, that's for sure, except maybe the last territory which is still under colonization is Western Sahara by Moroccan occupation. This is a fact, we should not forget that. Having said that, I think what is the situation right now of Africa? What's its role? What's its influence in the world affairs? How the African leaders are contributing to transforming the whole world right now in the international relation. I would say, frankly, I'm not so pleased and so delighted with the achievement of what African has done through the African Union or through the regional economic commissions. Still problems, still conflicts, still difficulties, still people are starving, of course, and still new form of colonization are taking part here and there. Not necessarily with the presence of French or English or European, let's say, colonialism, but there is a new form of colonialism through economy, through trade, and so forth. So I would say, having, as you mentioned in the introduction, having played their role in the early 60s, our leader Nkrumah, and of course Mandela, Bembela, Boumediene, of course Amal Abdel Nasser from Egypt, and all other Nyerere, the Muallim, all these leaders have brought us the independence. And now we should bear in mind that have we achieved what our leaders have thought in the 1960s with the adoption of the Organization of African Unity and its replacement by African Union in 2002. I would say, of course, enough, so many achievements, but still so many setbacks, because still now Africa has not its say on the global affairs. And I would say our mindset should be positive one, should be positive, should be, I would say, optimistic, realistic, pragmatic. We should give ourselves this self-confidence, because without confidence in our capacity, in our potentials, we can do nothing. That's why I urge all African leaders, African people, and through them African people, to be more optimistic and to deal with world affairs, to deal with at the same level. That's what we should. I think still we have some kind of neo-colonialist attitude, or I would say some leaders are very easily vulnerable. That's why we should be more independent and treat and deal with others on equal basis. That's what we have to impose our views on the world affairs.
which is very imperative as narratives are changing in contemporary society. You've just been informed of that. Dr. Babatunde Anifowase has just joined us now from the United Kingdom. You're welcome to the program, sir. We are already analyzing the place of mindset in ensuring the emancipation or total transformation of Africa, especially in the moment of multipolarity. I'll be welcoming you and getting your initial perspective of the role of this mindset and how imperative it is in ensuring the change that leaders are advocating for right now.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to my co-panelists. I actually started this with everyone before you came on board. I didn't just join. So thank you for having me. Do you want me to say a few words about mindset, or should I just wait until you call on?
I directed the question already to you, Dr.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think I will take you from where my colleagues, Dr. Temitope and Professor Aid, started. I think it's very, very important to understand what we mean by mindset to start with. So mindset, for example, has to be defined in an African context. So these are some of the conventional set of attitudes of a people or a group of people as Africans that relates to things like, our being, such as the values, the culture, the worldview, philosophy, character, and our approach to things generally. So the key questions are, what are the beliefs that we have or that we hold that shapes our mindset as Africans? All right? So again, later on in this interview, I will go ahead to describe some key aspects of ontology and epistemology that can help us to define mindset as an African. And then we'll look at how we then project that to the outside world. Because until we first of all understand what our mindset is as Africans, the question is, what sort of mindset are we radiating to the outside world? And what do we want the outside world to see and know about Africans when it comes to our mindset? I'm going to just stop there and see how we can take this further in the debate.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Babatunde, for actually defining the key term, which is imperative. And the way we react to all of this will determine where next we want Africa to be. And to you, Dr. Timi Topwe, we want to look at it from, in the course of the program, we'll be looking at even the economic perspective, the role of mindset in economic transformation. But now let's first of all identify those areas of, factors impeding Africa's emancipation, which we can correct by a change of mindsets.
Yeah, thank you very much once again. And I'm so happy the way we've started with this program today. Truly, from what Prof started with and has culminated with what Dr. Babatunde also opined, it take us through the definition or the meaning of this mindset. And truly, my own thoughts actually resonate with his thought. And I will be coming from this angle. It says that before we can actually achieve this, our desired goal, before we can actually achieve this transformation that we are clamoring for in Africa, then there is the need for us to change our mindsets. It is very crucial. It is very, very important. It is very imperative in the sense that you need to understand your belief system. Every decision you make is a product of a belief system. And I'm happy that Dr. Anifowase made mention of such belief. There's kind of values that we have actually carved around ourselves. Now, based on the question that you posed, what are the things that you think has been impeding the economic development or transformation in Africa? And I will start by saying that one of the key things is over-dependence or over-reliance on foreign aid. I'm not against foreign aid. I'm not against the fact that, okay, we could actually get some help from outside. But the resources that we have within the continent is more than enough to take care of the continent. But if the mindset, if the belief system is not changed, they will continue to rely on the Western world. Why did I say that? You know, as a person, there is this kind of notion that you have when you are taking up a form of a leadership position. You are looking at what exactly will be my gain. This is another thing, like you're looking at, okay, what exactly will be my gain in accepting this particular role? The place of corruption cannot be overemphasized in the country. So back to what I was trying to say, that over-reliance on the foreign aid, the outsides are coming to help us and all that. Trust me, if you do not identify the problem, it will be difficult for you to solve that problem. And that is why when you are conducting a research maybe as a researcher, you first of all find out, okay, what exactly is the problem? You identify the gap. After identifying the gap, what are the justifications for you identifying the gap? How do you solve this problem? So for us to be able to have this transformational achievement in terms of economic empowerment, then there is need for us to understand the fact that our belief system must change. Our mindset must change. Then over-reliance on the outside or the contribution from the outside has to totally change. In the same way, in terms of corruption, you know, the continent is being eaten up with this problem of corruption. I'll give you an instance of what happened when I was doing my PhD in South Africa. You know, as a lecturer probably in the Nigerian universities, you are entitled to this funding called TET fund.
Yeah.
And my university actually gave me the letter, okay, you can actually travel for your program, which I did. And along the line, the processing actually got to the national level. Don't know what happened, if something was not approved. Then, after a month, after a year, someone from that agency called me. I don't know how he got my contact, maybe through the application. And this man told me, can you get the admission letter from your university so that I can process the money for you? And I said, it's already a year into the program. And he said, get the admission letter that you have, edit it, change the date into the recent date, and I will process the money, then we can distribute something to maybe in terms of percentage.
Okay.
And right there, I told him, if it is about this, that I will not change the date, I'm not going to do that because it's going to affect my own belief system. That is fraud. So at that point, the place of corruption in the continent has to be totally dealt with before we can actually talk about transformation at all.
Okay. And which is very imperative for just to note that Julia Burke has joined the conversation to give us the perspective, of course, of the Russian Federation, and also join in unison with this quest for a transformative Africa through a mindset shift. Welcome, dear Julia. We know that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we saw how what we have today as the Russian Federation came up to define its trajectory in every sphere. And today, Russia is one of those powers that they are talking about in the global perspective. Today, we are looking at how a mindset shift, especially in this time of shifting alliances and multilateralism, can help to define a clear trajectory for the continent Africa.
Hello, I'm happy to join today's program, and I think that the topic that is being discussed is very important for the current geopolitics and for the current global transformation, because anything you might see around you has started from an idea, right? So first there was an idea, there was a thought, then there was the idea formulated in words, and only then people made it happen with the help of the tools and instruments that they had available. But everything started from mindset, from ideas, from thoughts, and we can say different things about visionaries, that they're not practical enough, that they're not capable of making things come into reality, yet it always starts with an idea, just like mentality defines to a great extent the not just the state of mind, but also modus operandi, right? The way we function.
Absolutely.
And if we have certain cases of unfair or unbalanced behavior, it always, as they say, takes two to tango, right? So when you have a victim, you always have an aggressor. And when you have a slave mentality, there is always an oppressor, right? So in the Soviet Union, when it was collapsing, there has been quite a lot of impact as well from the outside and some of the internal processes that made the country collapse. And then what we could not only observe, but unfortunately take part in as well, was very high unemployment rates, people not getting paid for months and months, ethnic conflict that resulted in ethnic violence to a great extent. And the 90s here in the countries of ex-Soviet Union and in the Russian Federation have been a nightmare when one system collapsed and the legislation, rules and regulations didn't exist anymore, but the new ones were not implemented. And the very same things that many countries have gone through with foreign advisors, the main goal of which was to take out as much resources and technology as was possible. So a lot of negative and destructive impact on lifestyle, cultural values is something that was also happening. So the mentality that was being formed in that time was a mentality of people that are always trying to run after Europe, run after the West, generally speaking, and the people that were always not good enough, right? So Eastern Europeans have gone through decades, if not centuries, of having that mentality imposed that we always need to be more civilized or, you know, use those examples. So instead of building on own identity, we were always trying to catch up with someone, which is impossible by definition, because you cannot run fast enough to catch up with someone who's just following his own path, right? And there are quite a lot of similarities also in terms of what's happening in Donbass and in some regions of Africa that decided to put their sovereignty first, to put their ability to define their values, their language, their economic preferences and economic alliances first, right?
Yeah. So
that's why you can see quite a lot of parallels. But what's important to highlight here is that only once we realize that you know, a nation or a country that consists of many nations can become a sovereign actor and is capable of relying on its own strengths and being conscious of its own weaknesses, it's only then we can build actual, you know, multipolarity or a more balanced and fair, mutually beneficial world order, right? Because otherwise it would always be a trap of trying to please someone and just get the leftovers from the table instead of being able to come to the table, bring something, and exchange it for something else that is lacking.
And indeed, in unison, Africa can actually excel. That is to say, Yulia, you quite mentioned a very pertinent point, as we are in a critical moment where you see the geopolitical contestations across Africa. So with a the right mindset, can Africa define its perspective at this global level? We're also going to get the viewpoint of Dr. Charles Sinkala, international relations expert, who has shared his perspective on this mindset and other aspects of factors which are actually still a setback to the total transformation of Africa, but the answer lies in a change of mindset.
Before I have to go to the mindset, and I think Africa, we must understand the agenda that we started some years ago with our forefathers who regained and fought tirelessly, and some of them they died at the hands of those colonial masters who did not want to relinquish this protectorate area, which they bought at a time at the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885 in Berlin. Until now, some of these territories are still owned by those erstwhile colonizers. If it was the British, they owned South Africa. If it was the British, they owned Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Nyasaland, and as well as going to the West, Nigeria also as well was sold by that auction for 780,000 pounds at that time. That is very important of the background that we need to understand as Africans. And those forefathers who fought, who came before us, the agenda that they agitated for the independence of Africa was that we regain our independence, to look after ourselves, to make sure that we actually enjoy the fruits of being as an African and compete on the global scale. And through that anticipation and understanding that this is who we're supposed to be, there was a Freedom Charter which was established and enacted by all the 32 heads of states and government who convened in Addis Ababa in 1963, hosted by His Majesty, Emperor Majesty Haile Selassie. And that background is very important. And those who were there, they had to make sure and promise through that charter that they will pass on the baton to generations, and generations will pass on the batons to other generations who will come, and till other generations will come, until this Africa becomes independent and without any influence from the outside. This was very important for us to understand the background, that what role are we playing, where you are as an African individual. Are you a citizen, or are you an idiot, or are you a tribesman? Last time I checked, we as Africans, we agreed onto that covenant that we shall be producing citizens of Africa, a citizen who pay allegiance to his own or her own country and the flag, the national flag, to make sure that they participate in one way or the other, to assure the rest of all our forefathers that they have carried on the baton from our forefathers, to make sure that they engage in meaningful contribution to the African continent. For some period of some time, if you may allow me to devour there, we complied to that agenda, especially as soon as we regained our independence of our African states. But along the line there, I do not know if these forefathers, some of them, they forgot to pass on the baton to the new generation that came in. I do not know. If one can ask me if my forefathers there in Zambia, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, who we celebrated his birth and at Kaunda Day 2 days ago in Zambia, I'm not sure if he left the baton. Is it possible that Robert Gabriel Mugabe from Zimbabwe left the baton to somebody who can pass it on to another African leader that will take the African Zimbabwe forward to a place that we desire? Is it possible that Kwame Nkruma of Ghana there in West Africa as well left the baton? Where is this baton which was left by these leaders? Where are these batons? Can we point at one person who has taken over to make sure that Ghana, Zambia, Nigeria, Mozambique, South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire, they are having a fair deal? Is it possible that also Cameroon, there's a leader or leaders who has taken over from those leaders who came before them and before us, that they shall take over the pattern and continue the relay race in terms of nurturing and fighting the independence and the economical independence of our countries? Is it possible that we forgot to carry on the baton from these leaders and they died? These are simple and difficult questions that we have to ask ourselves as Africans before we talk about the mindset and where Africa should be. Africa, we decided more than 60 years ago that we shall feed ourselves, we shall educate ourselves, we shall grow food, and that food we shall eat for ourselves without looking elsewhere to the West or the United States of America to feed us in terms of our food parcels in our houses. We had to make sure that we put in the systems that will grow and make sure that they feed us. Same when we get sick, as during those times we are working so tirelessly to make sure that we develop the infrastructure of the African continent to link us all within the continent to inter-area do business.
Thank you. That was Dr. Charles Sinkala. And of course, just to remind those televiewers tuning in now, that is Global Insight on For You Media. And we are taking a look at the place of mindset. Having a listener to the opening statements from all of you, coming back to you, Professor Laït Zaklami, I want us to analyze at this particular moment, how can Africa move away from the old mindset of complacency, pessimism, and dependency, and towards a new mindset of innovation, resilience, and even self-reliance that will suit the contemporary society.
Exactly, you are quite right. Exactly, that's what just said one of your panel. Education, sensitization, conscientization, awareness are a key values, a key element to get people a new mindset. First of all, we have to work on our mental. We have to have this, to strengthen our mental, a mental of iron, I would say, a mental of self-confidence, of pride, of sovereignty, of independence, of self-legitimacy. We have to be positive. We have to have your own confidence on your own capacity, on your own potentiality. That's what we don't have, unfortunately. Still, we are promoting in so many places in Africa. We are I would say promoting neo-colonial values, and as the lady from Russia said, Western countries will not allow you to get your own situation in the world. They always want to get you one way or the other under your occupation, under their occupation. What we see now in the world affairs, whether in Gaza, what happened in Gaza, or the war in between, of course, Russia and Ukraine, we see how the West are putting all their strength and military one, clout, and so forth, just to keep the same order. They don't want to have a new order of multipolar order of balance between different countries. So I think our politicians, and especially our representative in Addis Ababa through the African Union, should work to build up a strong leadership. Through a strong leadership, we can promote a value of, as I said to you, of self-confidence, and we have the potential to be ourselves. I'm always amazed how a continent with 1.4 billion inhabitants has not, they say, in the world affairs. Algeria, for instance, are striving, are fighting to get at least two I would say, permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. Well, that's the big fight. We should do it. And unfortunately, we see in other part of Africa, so many African leaders are, I would say, partnering in not in equal basis. And they should work on the issue of how to get balance between African and Western countries. Take the example also of the issue in Algeria. Again, I have to mention my country. We have signed a convention, treaty on treaty between European Union and Algeria. Unfortunately, it was not balanced. It was balanced to the European, and we asked them, we should obey by the rules and the decree of this contract. We cannot accept that you always impose on us what you want. So I think mindset has to change. Okay, as I said earlier, yes, 60s it was mindset for liberation. 80s, 20s, and now we have to fix our mindset for independence, for being more positive, for being more, pragmatic and to act by not only words but deeds on the ground, because we should know by now that if we don't do nothing, new colonization will come. I remember I listened the other day to one French. He said the West is about to colonize Africa again. So we have to be aware of that. So problem is on not on them.
Okay, which is very imperative, Professor. It is about adopting the right mindset. Dr. Baba Tunde, we are looking at this mindset shift, and when we listen to Professor Laida, he has actually taught Africa's #1 institution. We're talking about the African Union, and leaders have been very vocal in talking about adopting the right mindset for the transformation of the continent Africa. Let's look at the aspects of finance. The aspect of finance, especially at the level of the African Union, how a positive mindset towards ensuring a continental or internal financing of the organizational projects will gradually position it at a very pivotal level, especially in decision-making areas of the global world. Dr. Babatunde, the question is directed to you. Please, I will plead with you to mute yourself, Professor Light, so that we don't get the interruption.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ojo, Dr. Sinkala, Professor Lahid, Julia have made very important points, and I think one of the things they said revolves around ideas, it's ideology. The question you've posed relates to, financing. But the key question is, like I said at the beginning, what is our mindset? How do we measure our mindset? What understanding do we have of the ontology of our mindset? Because until we address these key questions, when it comes to financing, if we do not have the same or common understanding of what our mindset is, people will go in one direction to finance X, others will go in one direction to finance Y. So it is very important to bring it together first to understand these and how we measure that. I'll give you an example. A typical American believes that he or she can rule the world. So you ask the question, where does that confidence come from? It comes from the unison of what the forefathers out there in the US are sold to the American people. And that's been projected out to the whole world. The same thing is happening in China. The Chinese believe they're taking over the world through technology, through finance, through ideas, and what have you. So I think to answer the question, I would take us back to the ontology of reality. Yeah, as far as mindset is concerned, which relates.
Professor Lai, please, can you mute your mic so you don't interrupt this intervention from Dr. Babatunde, please?
Okay, thank you very much. So my point is, the reality of our existence and our mindset as Africans, how do we view our mindset and how is this projected to the outside world? The reality of our mindset and what defines it will determine what we spend our money on, will determine where we get our money from. We can decide to get our money from the US or from Russia, or we can decide to actually look inwardly to finance the things we need to do because of the resources that we have naturally. So ontology can help us to understand our historical, cultural, philosophical context and how this affects our claims about what we know about the African mindset.
Yeah.
That's my first submission there. Yeah. Then I go to the second bit, because it's two-part philosophical idea here.
Yeah.
Ontology, the first one. Secondly is the epistemology, which deals with how the knowledge about the African mindset is created. If I ask each and every panelist here, what really is our mindset and how was this created? What is possible to know, including how we generate reliable knowledge about the African mindset? We probably will go in different directions, which is fine.
Absolutely.
But for us to rule the world, for us to have the mindset of ruling the world, just like an average Americans will, or the Chinese nowadays are, we need to have a common understanding and a common goal and how we measure this. So, for example, how to separate true ideas from false ones. Absolutely. So this epistemology can help us to deal with how to know things, including the confidence in finding the truth about the meaning of African mindset. Otherwise, if we don't get these key issues right first, we can get financing from places that will influence our mindset contrary to our own desire as a people on the continent. I hope you understand my point.
Absolutely, Dr. Babatunde, which is a very practical, and in the same perspective, while we're talking earlier on in the preamble, we highlighted the need for transformational leadership, and I think a transformational leadership can come as a result of a unified understanding, mindset, or perspective that will guide a philosophy of decision-making leaders at the level of the African Union, which I'm directing this question to you, Dr. Temi Topuya. And here we're looking at how we can use this, defined mindsets to ensure transformational leadership that can in turn solve some of the ills you highlighted earlier on, corruption and others.
Thank you very much. Yes. I will still take a cue from what had been said, and I would just drive home my point with different submissions. I've come to realize that whatever you get, the difference between what you get and what you want is what you do. How do I mean? We have been speaking about transformation, economic transformation, this and this transformation. Whatever we get at this moment is as a result of what we do now. Now, as regards the leadership of development, whether we like it or not, African leaders, I'm sorry to say, and I'm not, I'm being apologetic about it.
Yeah.
We need leadership development. African leaders, there is need for development, whether we like it or not. Many of these leaders actually got to the office without being prepared for. They didn't prepare for the offices that they have occupying at the moment. So there is need for us to be able to take that bold step and attain some leadership skills and try to acquire some leadership skills so that we'll be able to know, that Dr. Babatunde was speaking about the mindset from the ontological point of view, and he gave different physiological views as regards when you want to manage the resources in terms of finance and the likes. Yes. You could actually have the finance and you don't even know how to manage the finance. So as a leader, there is need for you to be able to develop yourself. For example, you are building, let's say, a 2-story building. You had already set up the foundation for this 2-story building. And along the line, you think because you've acquired some form of resources, and the next thing you think you can do is to take to the 10-story building, without considering the foundation of the 2-story building that you proposed from the beginning, then you are deceiving yourself, because at that moment, there is a point of comatose that you are working towards to. Absolutely. Most of these leaders did not prepare for where they are at the moment. So there's need for us to be able, if possible, go to the grassroots. There is need for massive awareness about leadership skills. Even in our schools, the primary school, the secondary school, extracurricular things, this has to be incorporated into our curricula. So the leadership development is very, very important, whether we like it or not, for any form of transformation to happen. Then if our belief system is jettisoned, whether we like it or not, there is nothing good that wants to come out of that thing, because that is the way you perceive yourself. Your perception, your mindset is actually judged based on the belief system. Yes. What exactly is your belief system as a leader, an African leader? Why do you think you are in this position? Do you want to use it because of impunity? Do you want to use it because you want to amass wealth? Do you want to use it because you want to benefit your own loved ones? Or because you are there to be able to serve? So if the leadership development is not taken care of, our African leaders will perpetually be in the same circle, It's like a circular flow vicious cycle of poverty. And that is the way it will continue to revolve. And I'm happy that Dr. Sinkala made mention of that who are the people passing baton. But we have to be very careful also when they are passing the baton. The person that is passing the baton to the upcoming ones, does he have the requisite knowledge to be able to transform the continent? That is why we need to go to that grassroots. Engage them while they are still young, teach them different leadership skills, give them a lot of leadership development, and truly, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a transformation if our mindset can change from, okay, I just want to gain this, I just want to amass this, but because I want to transform my continent, because I want to transform every position that I'm holding. You can actually be an HOD of a department. If your mindset to take care of your department is not well gathered towards achieving the goal of your department, then you will mess up at the end of the day. So there is need for us to be able to achieve these transformation in Africa. But before we can actually achieve this, our mindset, our perception, our attitude towards leadership must change. And that's what I can submit at this moment for now. Maybe others will have something to say in line with that.
Absolutely, Dr. Temitope, thank you for that. Just to reiterate, in a book written by Professor Jack Disher, who highlighted that you can transform your life if you know yourself better. And I think Africans are already aware, moving from the mindset of the servant master that was instilled during the colonial era to a more, era of independence. And that's why we can note even the changes occurring at in the Sahel states, 3 Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, and elsewhere, where nations are keen on actually defining and defending the right sovereignty. Now, from a geopolitical perspective, dear Yulia, we look at that in the sense that there is some sort of global dynamics shift towards multipolarity, and which you have always highlighted on this platform, underlining the need for people to be intentional about what they are bringing to the table. So now we want to look at how African nations can adopt a more assertive mindset that ensures their interests are prioritized, especially in engaging in new negotiations, diplomatic negotiations with our international partners.
I really like the idea that was just said by Professor Babatunde, right? He just mentioned that one of the questions that is being asked in many cases in Africa is, who do we take money from? Is it the United States or Saudi Arabia or China or Russia or whatsoever else? Whether a question that could transform the mindset is the question of how do we use what we have in order to prosper.
Absolutely.
So I think in terms of the current geopolitical situation, at the moment, the preconditions are very much favorable for the African continent, because using the confrontation that is out there between the West and Russia, and maybe the West and the BRICS, if you could expand it to that level, or to a certain extent that would be the case, as Russia is actively promoting the idea of BRICS as an organization that is based on completely different principles. But in this situation, Africa's negotiating position is much better than it was before this escalation. And at this moment in time, using the big fight that is going on in different places, also within the African continent itself, African leaders can actually transform the situation to their own favor, juggling and balancing the different trade partners they can possibly have, using the benefits that those can provide. But the key difference here is that, when when I travel to Africa, in many cases, the only thing that I hear about is investment. So, of course, money flow or financial flow is essential for development and for building new infrastructure and whatsoever else. Yet at the same time, everything that is needed is already on the continent, right? Starting from the natural resources, the agricultural land that can be used, the incredible human potential that at the moment is at the top level in the world, right? Due to major developments in educational system, access to education, access to internet that provides opportunities not just for education, but also for professional self-realization and everything else. So I think that instead of trying to get investment, the key transformation that could really change the reality on the continent would be asking that question more. How do we best use what we already have in order to rely on this? Because investment is basically loans, right? When you get investment, the investor always wants a return of investment, and that implies that their interest is also in those returns that they're supposed to be getting. So the path of sourcing and searching for investment is quite limited because it would not allow to build on sovereign platforms, let's say. Whether the conversation on sharing profits, the conversation on joint ventures, and the conversation of using the resources at their best, which is added value, selling added value products instead of selling raw materials, and investing into own infrastructure, investing into fundamental science, education, exploration of soil in order to find the best approaches for agriculture, investments into local investments or joint ventures built around mining, built around energy, which is key for industrialization. So this kind of discourse, in my understanding, could take the situation to a new level at accelerated pace.
Thank you so much, which is very imperative. And in the same perspective with you, Dr. Babatunde, you quite mentioned a whole lot of things that if actually critically analyzed, we can already be gradually solving the underlying problem of African or to Africa's total emancipation. Now with this varying degree of influence from external powers, and you quite actually mentioned, and even Dr. Sinkala in his intervention highlighted the entanglement of many African countries by the Western nations. But now we are in the 21st century. So with this varying degrees of influence from these external powers, let's talk about the West. And how can Africa then develop a unified understanding or mindset that fosters solidarity and mutual benefit among its nations?
Thank you very much once again. Thank you for those brilliant submissions by Julia and my co-panelists so far. I think we have a structure in place on the African continent, and it's the African Union.
Sure.
Because there's nothing we can do as a continent without the say-so or without the instrumentality of the framework set by that African Union, which every country in Africa belongs to.
Indeed.
I think we need to begin to, the leaders of the AU, in partnership with other regional bodies, such as the African Development Bank, need to sit together and see how we can project this, what we refer to as positive mindset, to the outside world. And it is not just by saying the words from our mouth, but actually doing what needs to be done. So just like Julia was saying, instead of taking money from the West, from China or from Russia, how do we look inwardly? I mean, she did mention one of the points I had in mind before, which is about BRICS. We know how when BRICS started about 2-3 years ago, how it started making waves. What do we need to do? How do we ensure that BRICS is a success? And not just that, also recently in terms of energy, there was this African energy bank, which can help to invest from, locally into some of our resources so that we can develop that and build stuff inwardly from outside to the outside world. And that would then go alongside the things we say with our mouth in terms of our, mindset, which should, in my view, show some sort of growth mindset. And when you talk about growth mindset, it means that you were somewhere, you're presently somewhere now, and then you're going somewhere to happen. Absolutely. Which has things like the belief that the continent of Africa, its capabilities can be developed so that it can rival its contemporaries. There's nothing wrong with Africa developing technology or things that will shake the world, just like China is doing, just like the US is doing. And it is by setting the stones of those ideas in writing and then doing certain things practically to show the world that we can do it. And we must continue to improve that across the board. And that would be my response to your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Babatunde, which your response takes me to the next question. I think you will analyze this, Professor Laida. While talking earlier on, you mentioned Western Sahara, and there is this other aspect which I want us to dwell, which still has to do with, the right mindset for what moment for the continent needs to adopt. Let's look at the position of the African Union still. Dr. Babatunde and others have highlighted even the preamble of the African Union and the dictates of it. But when we will look at it critically, the sanctions, how the organization maybe reacts to some of the, drastic decisions of the taken by member states. We note that even after the last AU summit that held in its headquarters, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, we note that we noted, I beg your pardon, that the Sahel nations were not actually part of the summit because of sanctions. And now, recently, we see that there's some sort of, tension between Morocco and Algeria. And here we want to look at how, in this era of a wind of change, of renaissance across Africa, some colonial powers are actually trying to work on the mindset of African nations by making statements that relates to artificial boundaries created during the separation of the African continent to ensure some sort of confrontation or contestation within regional levels to stifle this wind of change that is growing. We are talking presently about the statement which France made pertaining Morocco's position in the Western Sahara and how this has played on the psychology of the nations and further frustrating the diplomatic relations, and how can this further go to derail even this continental journey of transformation?
Exactly, Karis, you are quite right. Let's just remind ourselves that Western Sahara was a Spanish colony. That's for sure. Facts are there. And General Franco, 1975, collided with King Moroccan Hassan II. And then, of course, the Moroccan invaded Sahara through what they call the Green March in 1970, in the mid of 1970. Since then, they put the whole world into in the situation of fait accompli. But African Union, and exactly the African Union and Western Sahara or Republic Sahrawi is member of the African Union Constitutional Act in 2002. African Union accepted that this issue should be solved through through, of course, self-determination and of course, a referendum. And they submitted the subject to the Security Council of United Nations. And until now, the issue is on the table, and President Secretary General of United Nations Guterres has appointed 2 years ago his special envoy Stephanie de Mistura, and he's working on how to get solution through direct negotiation between Morocco and Western Sahara. Algeria has nothing to do with the issue. It's just a question of principle. We will not accept that Western Sahara will be again occupied through the complicity of the West, through USA, through Spain, through, as you mentioned it rightly, Clarisse, France recently. Unfortunately, and what is amazing and what is paradoxical, that until now, about 23 African countries have opened their consulate in Dakhla, which is a colonized city in Western Sahara. I don't understand why these countries, the last one is Chad, and to the best of my knowledge, there is no single Chadian person in Dakhla. Why should they open their consulate? I think the basics, or I would say the objective of opening a consulate is to have your own citizens. But most of the countries which opened their consulate in Dakhla, Western Sahara city, is just because they have been corrupted, they have been bribed. And of course, this is another way of supporting the neo-colonial occupation by Morocco, with the support of Donald Trump, and of course with Spain and now with France. So if we continue to support this kind of situation, Africa will still be subject to manipulation and subject to blackmailing. And instead of talking about cooperation based on equal basis, about partnership, so many countries in Africa are still compromising their dignity, their independence against some few dollars. So this situation should be completely removed from their mind, because if we continue behaving this way, one way or the other, we will have another form of colonization, whether through France or Spain, or of course through United States or Britain. So I would say now, right now, if we are to stick to the values, international values of freedom, of self-determination, of independence, why do we have to breach them? And I think right now, Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa. That's what the Africans should know. If they run into some kind of arrangement for briberies, corruption, and this and that, we will not get Africa will not be country will not be respected in the international arena. How on earth, as I said already, 1.5 billion of inhabitants in this continent, 55 countries, and still we are begging support from this and that. Still under so many kind of hegemony. The West wants to impose its hegemony. The West wants to impose its domination on on Africa. And so many countries, so many African leaders are playing this role of subcontracting the interest of Western. I feel very sorry to say that. I think we should have opened our arms and our cooperation with all countries in the world, mainly Russia, mainly, of course, Turkey, mainly China and other countries in the world, whether through the BRICS, as Lady said, Yula said already. So we have to look for another form of opportunities, another form of cooperation, instead of still belittling to the West and behaving as we are still colonized. I think time has come that Western, that African leader should remove all this attitude of corruption, of mismanagement, of indignity, and they should ask for more respect I remember I saw the other day the debate, heated debate between Tshisekedi, the president of Democratic Republic of Congo, and president of France, when he said to him, "Don't talk to me this way." That's what we should expect from the African leader. They should speak to Western countries face to face, eyes to eyes, word to word. That's from that we can get, people will follow them.
Thank you so much, Professor Laid. And of course, adopting a perfect mindset will help African stakeholders to be able to address some of the challenges of, affecting the continent. Dr. Timi Topui, we still want to continue in the same perspective. This is a mindset of especially when it comes to the political discourse of the continent, and want to understand the political philosophy, maybe on how these, imposed boundaries have worked on the mindset or the mentality of African leadership, that people are so concerned about, preserving their, autonomy, especially political autonomy. Where do we find that common ground as far as uniting in terms of reasoning to be able to make good use of these, or maybe solve the existing present challenges which are impeding Africa's standing at the global arena?
Thank you very much. I was just trying to look at the reaction of Professor Laid. Mm-hmm. You could see how passionate he was while he was speaking. Absolutely. And the question that comes to my mind is, are the African Union actually united? That's the question that we should ask ourselves. You can see the way Prof was really reacting. It is so evident. There are so many things are actually happening in that continent. And the question I want us to ask ourselves is, are the African Union actually united? Once we are not united, definitely, whether we like it or not, we can't get things done. And why am I saying this? I've come to realize in this life that once your identity is not known, because what kind of identity are you projecting to people? What kind of identity are you telling people? Because the way you present yourself, the way people would accept you. And when you were saying that this is who you are, in terms of, okay, they were expecting you to be like at the forefront, but you have presented yourself that we can fight, we can decide to stay disunited. We tend to be inconsequential if care is not taken. We tend to be in the form of obscurity if care is not taken. And that is why anybody from anywhere can just bring anything to us and we accept it just like that. Why am I saying this? We have so many things, and I'm happy that Julia actually made the mention of those things. Yeah. We have mineral resources, we have so many things in that continent. The most important thing that I want us to mention at this point is human development. Mm-hmm. The first question, or the previous question you asked me was about leadership development. The continent is so blessed with a lot of experts, but they have failed to tap into the potentials of these experts, in the sense that they've not made the environment enabling for these experts. And that's why you see the likes of Dr. Babatunde in the United Kingdom, when he's supposed to be like contributing to his country, like Nigeria. That's why you see myself, I'm in Canada at the moment. Why am I doing in Canada if the environment is so enabling for us as Africans? So if the Africans are not united, for us to be able to tap into those potentials will be very difficult. In the sense that we are talking about the resources. If you come to the West, to US, the United Kingdom, you come to Canada and the likes, you will see the Africans at the forefront. They are the ones making waves in different fields, in different STEMs and the likes, technology, innovations and the likes. Africans are doing excellently well. And I'm asking myself that question again, that how come this set of people cannot develop the continent? It's because of the leadership issues that we have over there. It's because of the disunited association that happens over there. And that's why you will see a Nigerian working in South Africa, and there is a problem of xenophobia. Mm-hmm. In the last 2-3 years, if the Nigerian medical doctors are taken away from South Africa medical system, the medical system would collapse. I can tell you authoritatively. But now, I had my PhD there, so I can tell you with facts and figure. So I actually know what is happening over there. So it is high time the African leaders come together and stay united, so that we'll be able to tap into those potentials. Those potentials are there. Trust me, if the continent makes the enabling environment for the expats, I can tell you they will come back to that same country, to that same continent, and make improvement in that continent. So there is need for us at this point to stay united, stay at the forefront, and trust me, I can tell you for a fact that our identity will change. From being obscure, our identity will change from being the point of despondency. Our identity will change from being a point of always seeking for investment. I like the way Julia put it, that when he comes in contact with anybody in Africa and the likes, the next thing is about investment. And when we have enough resources to be able to make those investments and take care of ourselves, look inward and take care of our own continent, to the point that we'll be able to even export into the Western world. But what exactly are we exporting? We are exporting human development to the Western world, and we are using those. They are using the human development to develop their own continent. And let me just stop at this moment.
Of course, and some of those maybe what you highlighted, some of the complexities of this issue, because some political pundits have actually advocated that, of course, Africa has made strides politically, even economically, but there is still that common ground, which is the mindset that has not attained that level of compromise, real collaboration for the real business to happen across the continent. Maybe coming back to you, Julia, and here we're looking at the future readiness and inclusive development. Earlier on, I think during your first intervention, you were highlighting and comparing, the fight for independence in the Donbass and what is already happening across some African countries defending their sovereignty in contemporary complex society. So now in this section of looking at the future readiness and inclusive development, we have identified that Africa has everything, but there is still the fact that the continent was colonized. We still see some of the lapses which comes from what was actually inculcated in terms of the culture and other, philosophies inculcated in the minds of Africans and their leaders. So now in this era of, shifting alliances and even, rewriting alliances, what role do international partnership play now in fostering a mindset shift in African nations, particularly in terms of, knowledge sharing and capacity building that will make countries across the continent to, see the endowment and capitalize on it to ensure this transformation that we are actually talking about right now?
Well, I absolutely agree with Professor Laid that said when he said that education plays the key role. Education has to contain the very basis of history, the very basis of culture, in order to grow and foster dignity among the young people going to school, among the young people going to universities. And I think that is key in order to build the mindset that would be based on realization of own resourcefulness and on being conscious regarding own role in the world, right? Because you know, there is quite a lot of data that one could look at to see who's actually dependent on whom. But if you just look at the trade balance of France, if you just look at what you know, to a great extent, the Belgian, the French wealth was built on, and if you just look at you know, who was coming where for resources, you would realize that it's Africa that everyone is looking at and some are trying to benefit from. So I think education with a special focus on history, with a special focus on traditions, is absolutely key. And you can have many examples when African traditions were bringing something to the international system. For example, you can look at Ubuntu philosophy that has played a great role. You can look at Gacaca court system that was introduced also at the international level after it was applied in Rwanda after the genocide. So you can look at a lot of different examples and a lot of traditions, a lot of interesting facts from the historical background, which were attempted to be wiped out. So basically, what was attempted to be taught in many countries is that there was nothing much happening, but then the Europeans came and things became better. And you know, I can say that Russian history that was basically rewritten by the British in 18th century in the times of Peter the Great, it's pretty much the same. So according to that version that the British wrote, there was nothing but tribes in rivalry. And then in 10th century, some managers came from the north and things became better. So that version of history doesn't talk about what was happening before, doesn't talk about the history of the Slavic people that even got labeled Slavs, coming from the word slave. We don't call ourselves like that. And I think, yes, there are a lot of similarities, but this very pattern of there was nothing but chaos, but then we came and taught you how to live. It's very much typical. It happened to Indians when they were colonized. It happened to many nations, not to mention the Native Americans that, I mean, it's hard to find a different term to genocide to describe what happened in North America when that continent was colonized, but it's not something that is widely discussed in public. So I think going back to the roots, to the actual history, bringing up all those examples from the cradle of humanity in South Africa to the Great Zim in Zimbabwe and many other examples would help to build that dignity that is necessary to be talking not with attitude, but with a conscious and stable sovereign mindset.
Indeed, it's about discussing with a stable mindset.